Wayne has passed concussion protocol, and he'll practice in pads and everything.
Yeah, he practiced yesterday. He been pads today.
Coach, with all losses.
Big news. Wayne Gallman is going to play Saturday.
Yesterday.
At 8:22 p.m.
He was a bit ambiguous about whether he had a concussion. Has there been any sort of disconnect about what he told the trainers?
No. There was no disconnect at all. He just, like I said, he really responded well. You know, they have a protocol that you go through. And, you know, he's going to practice in pads today. He's going to do all the team stuff. We're not going to put him in inside drill today. We'll put him back in inside drill tomorrow. But he'll do everything else, and he's ready to go.
Has the protocol changed in the last couple of years?
No. I mean, it's changed in that it's to the nth degree, you know, as far as the side of caution. You know, it's all changed in all levels of football, which is a good thing.
Both Wayne and Hunter in the last couple weeks, they mentioned how, like, Hunter said, like, I felt a little numb, shouldn't have told the trainers that, and then Wayne talking yesterday.
Yeah, that's not good. I think you should always communicate that. I think Hunter was just, you know, he was just, he was fine. You know, he felt like he could have come back and played that game. He practiced all last week. He didn't miss any practice last week. You know, but they have a protocol, and they do a great job with all that stuff. You know, I just always sit around and say, tell me who to play. You know, I don't get involved in any of that, but. Wayne was really great and responsive the next day, that afternoon, the next day, and all last week. But he's gone through the whole protocol and he's ready to go.
Do you find that players are more hesitant to report any kind of injuries, concussions?
I don't. No, I think it's just the opposite. I think the trainers and the doctors and the coaches, you know, are more cautious now. The game's safer than it's ever been. It's never been safer. And, you know, because people are just more aware of things, you have more knowledge about stuff, and you know the signs to look for. And if there's any question at all, you're out. I mean, it's just the way it is. But I have not noticed that. I think the players have a much better understanding. And it's not seemed like, you know, back when I was playing, I mean, if you complained about something, you were perceived as soft or not tough or whatever. And that culture has changed drastically, without a doubt.
Did you think that was targeting on ball?
I thought it was a pretty vicious hit, but we sent it in, and they said it wasn't targeting, so I guess it wasn't.
Coach, despite losing 3 underclassmen starters in the secondary, you're currently ranked number 7 in passing defense, allowing 166 yards a game. What can you say about the job that Coach Reed and Coach Venables have done there?
Tremendous job. You know, I think the guys have really bought in to the disciplines of the defense and taken a lot of ownership in their preparation, their attention to details, studying the opponents each and every week. You know, Jadar has been, to me, the player of the year. You know, he's that guy this year that has just taken us to another level. I mean, I can't stress that enough. Really proud of Jadar. He has been as consistent a player as we've had on our football team, and we were very hopeful that he would take that next step, and boy has he. You know, he starts on special teams. I mean, he's become a great leader, and we needed that on that back end. And he's a vocal guy. You know, he really wasn't much that early on in his career, but he's become a take charge kind of a guy on the back end. He and Van have a great chemistry. Obviously, Cordray has, you know, it's interesting. Last year, Cordray had a bunch of interceptions. This year, he hadn't had as many, but hadn't had as many opportunities. And then I think that just the confidence that we have gotten in those other players, Marcus Edmond, Ryan Carter, Mark Fields, those guys, we've combined to really have a very productive group on the back end. You know, it's a lot of competition back there, and really proud of them. They've done a great job. You know, the biggest thing we talked about coming into the season was the big plays. You know, as I said, we were dysfunctional last year. Dysfunctionally good. I mean, we were really good, top 10 defense, but we kept giving up a lot of big plays, and we'd get big leads on people. Next thing you know, you're kicking an onside kick. you know, because we were giving up these chunks. And we have really, through 7 games, we've done a great job. And the 7 games don't make a season. We got a long way to go. But I love what they've done to this point.
With the
Very consistent.
Sorry. With the huge game-saving plays at the end there that Marcus Edmond made, have you noticed the last few weeks that maybe he's had an extra pep in his step and maybe kind of elevated his play?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, success breeds confidence, you know, and he's just, he definitely has a different swagger to him. There's, you know, no doubt about it. He put the work in, first of all. He worked his tail off this spring, the off season, the spring, the summer. I mean, really grinded, and then he got hurt, and so I think he just had a lot of fuel to come back. But it's one thing to do that. It's another thing to go and have some success, and that's oftentimes all a player needs is just a little bit of success, and then all of a sudden that confidence, you know, emerges, and the game slows down. You play a little faster, and that's been the case for Marcus. I mean, he has been a big time guy for us, you know, come through for us in a big way this year.
Speaking of guys stepping up, are there any backups or bench players and stuff that are performing really well, taking their game to another level that we need to know about, that we may not know about as the media?
I mean, I think there's a bunch of those guys. I mean, shoot, you look at our offensive line. You know, we've played a lot of guys in that offensive line through 7 games. You know, you got a young guy like Tremaine Ankrum. You know, I mean, he is a Pollard. They've gotten some good experience this year as true freshmen. You know, last year, that was a huge story for us. But we got Mitch Hyatt. I thought Frew Morgan came back and played his best game last week. Did a great job for us. But Hearn is a young sophomore player. You know, he's had a really solid year for us too. But you know, it's a guy like Tremaine Ankrum and Pollard. I think 2 guys like that. Falcinelli has had to play some center. He's played some guard. He's a sophomore player for us that people don't really talk about, but he's a really good football player. You know, I think Mylan Richard, even though he hasn't had a lot of touches, I think he has really come on and a guy that shows a lot of promise for us moving forward. You know, Leggett's kind of been the featured guy at that position, but I think that we've got a good future there at tight end. I really do with the guys that we have in that sophomore group. There's certain things that I see that a lot of people don't see, and then I think the development of our quarterbacks. Again, I think even though Kelly hasn't had a lot of opportunity, I think he's continued to improve, and it's a good situation. And the same thing on the defensive side. You know, a guy like Trey Lamar. You know, it's this kid Skowski. Here's a couple of young guys that are going to be great for Trayvon. Really good players that are kind of coming on. Kayvon. I mean, these are really talented guys that give us a bright future. You know, several other guys. I mean, Huggins is a guy that's emerging. He's going to end up being a great player for us. So we got a bunch of guys that I think have made good contributions. Register, Yergin, that maybe don't get talked about as much, but have you know, been good players for us.
Coach, you talked about how in Death Valley the crowd can influence a game, doesn't determine it. How do you not let a crowd like the one in Tallahassee influence the outcome at all with your squad?
Just stay focused on, you know, first of all, it starts, you got to have a great week of preparation. You know, we try to prepare our guys. We'll create crowd noise and all that type of stuff to make them have to really focus and practice the way they need to. But, you know, that's the main thing. And then you just stay dialed in on what you're doing. You don't get distracted by all that stuff. If you're really locked in to what you're doing and you've had a great week of preparation, you know, that shouldn't be a factor for you. I mean, you have to stay locked in, and you got to, you know, keep your poise. And if you do have a mistake, just go to the next play. Don't let one mistake lead to 3. And, you know, try to do the best you can to block that type of stuff out. But the other thing is you draw on your experience. You know, it's not like this is our first road trip. We've played at a lot of places. And, you know, defensively, it's always easier on the road. You know, it's actually a little harder to communicate for our defense at home because it's so loud. But on the road, it's a little bit easier for our defense. It's harder on the offense, obviously. But we try to prepare them in practice, and then again, the experience. You know, we've played you know, at Auburn this year, and maybe one of the best games we've had, to be honest with you, offensively, and probably one of the clutchest games we've had. I know that the score didn't maybe please some people, but you know, we had 8 drop balls in that game and 3 drop touchdowns in that game. But we didn't finish on some plays, but the overall poise. I don't think we had one offsides in that game, in an opening game. And then that last drive, that 3-minute 20-something, 3:23 or whatever it was, that last drive was just incredible. On the road, back against the wall, Jordan Hare, and the drive that we put together was just awesome to take the air out of the ball. But you know, so they've got good experience to draw on, but it's all about this week. You know, I mean, you gotta play well this week. That's what I always tell our guys. We're really not trying to win all of our games. We're just trying to win the one we're playing. That's really all we're trying to do. And the way you do that is try to win the play you're playing. All right, don't worry about the last play. Don't worry about the next play. Let's just win this play, and just kind of create that mentality, because that's how you get locked in. That's the type of focus that you got to have to execute, you know, cleanly.
This is your 4th